Sarah. Don't come closer.
Have you ever come across someone you once loved so deeply? In the middle of a cold October rain, as if fate itself was orchestrating the moment? That's exactly what happened to Leonard, a wealthy, composed businessman, until he saw her. A woman kneeling on the sidewalk, drenched, holding a cardboard sign, "Please help me buy medicine for my child." When she looked up, his world shattered. It was Elena, the wife who vanished 8 years ago, without a word, and next to her, a small boy with his eyes. Leonard couldn't breathe. He thought she had betrayed him. But the truth? She was running. Not from him, but from the one person he trusted most. This story is inspired by real cases, over 200 stories of broken families I've studied while writing scripts, and perhaps, just perhaps, you might see yourself in it too. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why she left without saying goodbye, who truly kept them apart, and how a sick little boy became the bridge that healed everything. Even if you don't believe in destiny, this will make you believe in love again. A DNA test revealed 99.99% match. He is the father. Leonard held his unconscious son's hand during the transfusion, tears streaming down his face. I should have been here 8 years ago. If you've ever lost someone, don't skip this, because sometimes we don't get a second chance to say, "I'm sorry." Now, before we begin, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? And how far do you think this story of forgiveness and love can travel? Wherever you are, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Rain fell like broken glass onto Tremont Avenue, slicing through the October fog that clung to the city like a ghost refusing to leave. Traffic lights blurred behind the windshield, red to green to gold, smearing color over the silver hood of the BMW. Inside, Leonard Grayson sat frozen behind the wheel, his phone aglow in his hand, but his eyes were fixed outside. Something had broken the clockwork order of his mind. She was kneeling on the sidewalk, drenched and shivering, her coat soaked through and clinging like paper. A crumpled cardboard sign in her trembling hands read, "Please help. I need medicine for my son." Her hair hung in tangled curls, heavy with rain. She looked up for only a second, but that second slammed into him like the aftermath of an explosion. It was her, Elena. She was supposed to be gone, erased, filed under betrayal and left to rot behind the locked drawers of memory. But there she was, in flesh and ruin, 8 years and 100 lifetimes later. Leonard opened the door and stepped into the rain. He didn't run. He didn't shout. Just walked slowly, like every step was a question with no safe answer. He stopped a few feet away. His voice, when it came, was quiet, cracked. "Elena." She flinched. Her shoulders curled in. She didn't look at him, just turned her face toward the gray stone wall like it might swallow her. Her voice was a rasp, barely audible under the rush of passing wheels. "Don't come closer. You don't know the whole story." The words weren't anger. They weren't a plea. They were a confession. And they cut through Leonard's chest like cold iron. He took a half step, then stopped, his dress shoes filling with water. Behind him, the BMW blinked, forgotten. Around them, the city moved on. Umbrellas swayed past, taxi horns barked, neon lights buzzed to life above coffee shops. But something ancient had frozen between them. She looked smaller now, not just thinner or more fragile, but smaller, as if the world had tried to erase her, bit by bit, and almost succeeded. Her eyes darted toward a nearby alley as if expecting someone or something to emerge. Leonard's gaze followed, but it was empty. Just brick, graffiti, and the hum of an old street lamp. "Elena, please, let me help you." She shook her head. Her lips pressed together, white at the edges. She clutched the cardboard tighter as if it could shield her from the past. "You don't get to help, not yet. That was the last thing she said before she stood, slowly, knees stiff, and walked away into the mist, the cardboard sign tucked beneath her coat like a secret she couldn't burn. Leonard didn't follow. He stood there until the rain soaked through his suit, until his phone buzzed again with a calendar alert he didn't care about, until the last trace of her disappeared into the blur of people who never looked back. And then he moved, not toward his car, but toward the direction she had vanished. It wasn't rational. It wasn't clean, but nothing about her ever had been. And for the first time in years, Leonard Grayson, man of logic, finance, mergers, and timed ambition, felt something he couldn't quantify. He felt the absence of a truth he'd never asked for. The building stood like a wound on the edge of the old district. Concrete blocks stained with watermarks, a rusty mailbox with chipped numbers. She had left breadcrumbs in her escape. Old addresses, mutual friends who lied badly, a pattern of dropped connections that formed a map only a heartbroken enough could read. And his had finally broken in the right shape. A woman on the 4th floor let him in without asking. The hallway stank of bleach and boiled cabbage. Leonard paused outside the door marked 4C. From inside came the faint sound of coughing, soft like moths against glass. He knocked. Nothing. He raised his hand again, but the door opened just a crack. Elena's face peeked through. Her skin was pale, lips cracked. A bandage peeked from beneath her sweater near her collarbone. Her hair was dry now but uncombed, the natural curl gone wild. "I shouldn't let you in." "I'm not leaving." She held his gaze for a long, slow breath, then opened the door wider. Inside, the apartment was barely lit, just a floor lamp in the corner, throwing a yellow haze across the threadbare carpet. A kettle whistled weakly on the hot plate. In the far corner, beside a beat-up dresser, a pile of letters sat neatly stacked, bound with a faded strip of cloth. Leonard walked to them like in a dream. His fingers hovered. "They're yours," Elena said quietly. "All of them. I wrote every week, for almost a year." He picked up the top envelope. His name was on it, in her handwriting. Unmistakable, slanted slightly right, with that long tail on the Y she never corrected. "I never got these." "I know," she said. "Your mother made sure of that." It was the first time she'd mentioned his mother, and it wasn't angry. It was factual, like reading from a file. "She changed the forwarding address, paid a man to come to my building, told me to disappear or she'd make sure. I did for good." Leonard sat down slowly, letter still in hand. "Why didn't you fight?" Her hands shook as she poured tea into a chipped mug. She didn't drink it, just wrapped her fingers around the heat. "I tried, until I couldn't. I was sick. No insurance, no job. I wrote, I begged, then I stopped." He opened the first letter. "Leonard, if you're reading this, it means I dared to believe the world might still make space for miracles." Her voice echoed in the room, even though she wasn't reading aloud. He flipped through the bundle. Dozens, some pages smudged with rain, one folded like it had been clutched tight for hours. And the last one? She sat beside him, reached out, and touched it before he could unfold. "I left, not just for me." Her hand moved slowly to her belly, flat now, but 8 years ago. Leonard's world tilted. A noise rose in his ears like water flooding a hallway. He looked up. Her eyes were glassy, rimmed red. She nodded. "You have a son." He stood, but didn't speak. Couldn't. His hand gripped the edge of the counter, hard enough his knuckles turned white. The sound of the city outside faded. The flickering lamp buzzed louder. Something inside him cracked open, not with rage, not with blame, with weight, with the crushing realization that somewhere out there was a child, with his blood, and no name on the birth certificate. "Where is he?" Elena stood too. Her answer was a whisper, but it carried all the way to the bone. "I'll show you tomorrow, but you have to understand. He doesn't know you exist. I made sure of that. It was the only way to keep him safe." Leonard didn't speak. He simply walked to the window. Rain still fell, but now it was softer, like it had done its damage and decided to weep for what it broke. And he stood there, breathing against the fogged glass, wondering. If he'd seen the boy before and never known, If the boy had seen him once and looked away, tomorrow he would know. Tomorrow he would see. But tonight, all he had was a name he didn't yet know, and a silence that thundered. The smell hit him first. Damp plaster, faint bleach, and something metallic, almost like rust, lingering in the corners. Leonard stepped across the threshold into Elena's apartment for the second time, but now he saw it differently. Not as a stranger's shelter, but as the broken shell of a life once tethered to his. The light bulb above flickered, humming low like a dying insect. A kettle steamed faintly on the stove, untouched from the night before. Leonard's eyes settled on the stack of fabric-bound letters on the counter, still exactly where he left them. Elena stood by the window, her arms crossed, back stiff. Her voice didn't rise above the creak of the old radiator. "You didn't sleep." "I wasn't trying to." He moved toward the stack slowly, like it might explode. One letter slid free and dropped to the floor. He bent to pick it up. The paper was soft, corners curled. The ink had bled in places, some from water, some from something else. Maybe tears, maybe time. The date was 8 years ago, the month she vanished. He unfolded it. "Leonard, I heard the woman at the front desk say your name. I was 2 floors above, praying you'd come up, but she sent you away. She told me afterward it was for the best. I should have fought harder, but I was scared and sick, and the baby kept kicking, as if warning me you'd never come." His hands trembled. He read 3 more, each one slicing cleaner than the last. They weren't angry, they weren't desperate. They were something worse, hopeful. Elena finally turned from the window. Her face was unreadable, but her shoulders had sunk. "I wrote every week. I'd leave them at the desk. Sometimes I waited to see if you'd show up. Your mother made sure you never did." Leonard blinked slowly. She intercepted them? She paid off the landlord, changed the mailing address, hired a man to follow me for months. I didn't even know until he slipped, called me by your last name in the street, said something about protecting the family line. I stopped writing after that. A low laugh escaped Leonard's throat, but it didn't sound like amusement. It sounded like pressure escaping a cracked pipe. "And I believed you walked out, that you'd used me, betrayed me." He sat down again hard. "She told me you'd married someone else in another city." Elena gave a bitter smile. "She told me I'd cost you your future, that I was a distraction, a liability, said if I loved you, I'd vanish." A silence thickened in the room, not the silence of peace, the kind that hums after a siren passes, waiting for the next impact. Leonard leaned forward. His fingers brushed the letter again. "I was going to propose." Elena's breath hitched. "I had the ring. I kept it in my drawer, waited for the right moment." He looked up at her. Something in his face, exhaustion, clarity, something broken and raw, shook her. "I thought you knew that." Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she reached behind her bookshelf. A rusted tin box emerged from the shadows. "I kept everything, even when it hurt too much." Inside were photos, tiny post-it notes, a dried-out lavender stem from a bouquet he'd once given her, and, wrapped in tissue, one letter unopened, still sealed, unmarked. She handed it to him. "I found this in my mailbox a year ago. No return address, no handwriting, just this." Leonard peeled the envelope open, slow like peeling skin. Inside was one line typed. "You were never meant for her." No signature. He stared at it for a long moment. "Mother," he whispered. "She never stopped." "Even now?" Elena asked, her voice a blade dulled from overuse. He looked up. "I don't know, but if she finds out about the boy—" Elena stiffened. Her eyes darkened. She reached into the drawer beside the bed, pulling out a worn, folded paper. The birth certificate. His name wasn't on it. Father, blank. Surname, Elena's. "She told me if I ever used your name, she'd bury the child's future. Said no school, no doctor, no safety. She had people, money, influence. I didn't take the risk." Leonard ran a hand through his graying hair. His heart thudded unevenly. She threatened a child. She threatened her legacy. A gust of wind slammed the window shut. Both flinched. Leonard stood abruptly. "I need to see him, now." Elena hesitated. Her eyes darted to the small clock near the stove. 10:15. He'll be at the park. It's Saturday. He always draws with sidewalk chalk near the red benches. Leonard grabbed his coat, but before he reached the door, she spoke again. You can't just show up and say you're his father. He froze. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for time, she replied. Their eyes locked, each holding more years than words. Let me come with you, she said softly. So they went, down 4 flights of creaking stairs, past the peeling green door, out into the wind that still carried October's wet chill, past the storefronts and rusted fences, toward a park that looked more memory than space. Children screamed and ran, dogs chased leaves, and there, near the red benches, was a boy. He was crouched over the pavement, tongue caught between his lips as he drew. Sidewalk chalk in hand, sleeves pushed up. He moved like someone who didn't yet know what heartbreak was. Leonard's feet slowed. The boy's hair was thick, like Elena's, but his posture, his chin, the line of his jaw, familiar. A mirror turned 8 years younger. Elena watched him, then nodded toward the swing set. I'll wait there, you go. Leonard approached slowly as if the air itself might betray him. He stopped a few feet away. The boy looked up. Dark brown eyes, flecks of gold near the iris. Leonard knew those eyes. The boy blinked. Hi, Leonard said, unsure how to exist. The boy tilted his head. You want to draw? Leonard knelt beside him, knees cracking. Sure. He picked up a piece of blue chalk. The boy resumed sketching. A house with a chimney, 3 stick figures holding hands, a sun in the corner with a smile. Leonard added a cloud. They worked in silence for a minute. Then the boy said, without looking up, You have eyes like mine. Leonard's throat tightened. Yeah, I noticed. The boy wiped his hands on his jeans. My name's Noah. Leonard's lips barely moved. I know. The boy looked at him, curious. How? Before he could answer, Elena appeared behind the bench. She held something in her hand, a photo, a tiny worn snapshot of Leonard holding a wine glass from a dinner party long ago. Noah stood. Mom? She knelt beside him, handed him the photo. I told you looked like someone special. Noah stared at it, then back at Leonard. His brows furrowed. Is he... Elena took a breath. He's someone I want you to know, but only if you're ready. Noah didn't answer. He walked back to the drawing, picked up the chalk, and added a 4th stick figure to the picture. This one taller, standing beside the others. Leonard couldn't breathe. Then the boy looked up and said, You should come back tomorrow. I want to finish this drawing with you. Leonard nodded, voice stuck in his throat. I'll be here. Noah smiled, just a flicker, but it was enough to thaw the world. Elena watched them from a few steps away. She held the photo to her chest. Her hands trembled. Then she whispered, mostly to herself, I thought I was saving him from you, but maybe I was just saving myself from the pain. Leonard turned slowly, eyes glassy. He's not just a child, he's everything I lost. She didn't reply. The wind picked up again. Leaves scattered, and somewhere in the air, a weight shifted. They stood together as Noah kept drawing, and the chalk scratched soft across the concrete like a song neither of them remembered until now. He didn't speak, just watched from behind the glass. Leonard stood outside the school fence, his breath ghosting into the morning chill as children spilled out of the double doors in a wave of laughter and shrill voices. Backpacks bounced, scarves flew in the wind, chalk dust clung to small shoes. And then, there he was, Noah. A knit beanie covered most of his curls. He walked a little slower than the others, hugging a sketch pad to his chest. The sleeves of his hoodie were pushed halfway up, revealing crayon stains on both arms. Elena's name was on the school registration form. Father, blank. Grayson wasn't part of him. Not legally, not yet. The boy's surname wasn't his. Leonard didn't wave. He simply watched, as if blinking might ruin it. Noah stopped near a bench and crouched. He opened the sketch pad and began to draw right there on the cement ledge, using the dull nub of a graphite pencil worn down from weeks of use. Leonard stepped closer. The fence rattled slightly under his hand. Then Noah looked up. Not startled, not curious, just aware. like he'd felt something shift in the weather. Leonard smiled faintly. Noah didn't smile back, but he didn't look away. He stood slowly, closed the pad, and walked over to the fence. Only inches separated them now, mesh wire, rusted in patches, the kind that still left marks if you leaned too hard. Noah tilted his head. "You came back." Leonard's throat worked, but his voice was steady. "I said I would." Noah squinted. "You didn't bring any chalk." Leonard blinked, then smiled. "No, but I brought something else." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a tin box, old, round, once used for mints. Inside, dozens of colored pencils, sharpened fresh that morning. Noah's eyes lit up for a second, then dimmed. "I don't have paper." Leonard nodded toward the sketch pad. "May I?" Noah handed it over. Their fingers didn't touch, but something passed between them, something quiet and real. Leonard flipped to a blank page, chose a dark blue pencil, and began to draw a house. Carefully. Like it mattered. "Is that your house?" Noah asked after a while. Leonard didn't look up. "It used to be." "Why'd you leave?" The pencil paused. "I thought I didn't belong there anymore." "Because of someone?" Leonard looked at the boy. His eyes held something older than 8 years, a kind of worn understanding. "Yeah," Leonard said softly, "because of someone." Noah nodded like he understood. "My mom doesn't talk about you." "I know, but I think she wants to." Leonard swallowed. "What makes you say that?" "Because when she watches me draw, sometimes she cries, but she doesn't want me to see." Leonard's chest tightened. Maybe she's scared." "Are you?" The question came so fast, Leonard barely caught it. He stared at the page, at the house he drew, at the boy beside him. "Yes," he said finally, "I am." Noah looked at him for a long time. Then, without warning, he reached into his backpack and pulled out a piece of paper. Crumpled, torn at the edge. A birth certificate. Leonard froze. The boy smoothed it out on the bench and pointed. "See this part? It doesn't say anything here." Leonard read the line, father's name, Sapai Swade. Noah looked up, eyes sharp. "Does that mean you're not real?" Leonard's jaw clenched. "No, it means no one told the truth." He didn't expect what came next. Noah tore the page in half, clean right through the middle, folded it once, then handed half to Leonard. "You keep it," he said. Leonard took the torn piece with both hands. "Why?" "Because I think you're gonna need proof someday, that I knew before anyone said it." A gust of wind swept through the yard. Leaves danced across the blacktop. A bell rang in the distance. Elena stood near the corner, watching. She hadn't moved since she arrived. Her eyes fixed on the boy, on the man beside him, on the fragile thread of understanding pulling tight between them. Noah turned back toward the building. "I have science now." Leonard nodded. "Go be brilliant." Noah grinned. "I already am." He ran off, shoes squeaking against the pavement, backpack bouncing. Leonard stood for a moment longer, the torn paper pressed flat in his palm. Then he turned. Elena didn't speak, just looked at the paper. I didn't think he still had it. He did more than have it. He gave it back. Her eyes softened. They walked in silence down the street. At the corner, she paused. "Want to see something?" He nodded. They turned down a smaller road into a narrow alley lined with murals. At the end was a small building, 1 story, old brick, faded sign, a church that had been turned into a community center. The windows were papered with children's artwork. Elena unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled of tempera paint and old wood, crayons, paper, disinfectant. Leonard looked around. Tables stacked with supplies, cabinets labeled in shaky handwriting, a wall covered in photos of kids holding up drawings, smiling in crooked-toothed grins. "This is where I teach art," she said. He walked slowly to the far corner. A canvas stood on an easel, half-painted. A child's face, brown eyes, a swirl of blue in the background. "You still paint when I can." He stared at the canvas. It looked like Noah. "I thought you stopped." "I tried." She leaned against the doorframe. "But something always pulls me back, like gravity or guilt." He turned to her. "I want to be part of his life, not just drop in, draw a house, and leave." She crossed her arms. "I don't want to watch him get hurt. I don't want to miss everything." They stood like that, a dozen feet between them, more than 8 years' worth of silence filling the gap. Then Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to him. Inside was a photograph, a newborn, swaddled in a faded blue blanket, tiny fists raised, Leonard's nose, Elena's lips. He looked at her. I never saw this. You were never supposed to. Why show me now? Her voice cracked. Because something broke in me when I watched him talk to you and smile, something I thought I'd buried. Leonard's hand closed around the photo. I'm sorry. She didn't answer. The wind rattled the windows. Outside, kids shouted in the distance. Then softly, Elena whispered, Tomorrow, there's a checkup. He gets tired more than he should. Leonard turned sharply. What kind of checkup? Just something routine, I hope. But her eyes betrayed the fear she didn't say aloud. Leonard stepped forward. I'll come. She hesitated. He doesn't know we're worried. Then we won't show it. He reached for the photo again, held it to his chest. We'll show him we're here. Elena nodded. Just once. The sun dipped low outside, casting long shadows across the floor. Leonard stood in the quiet, holding a torn paper in one hand, a faded photo in the other. Tomorrow would bring questions. But for now, he finally had something to hold on to. The scream didn't sound human. It tore through the hallway like a jagged blade, stopped nurses mid-step, made one man drop his coffee on the linoleum floor. Leonard heard it just as he reached the elevator doors. He froze. Elena's voice, raw, breaking. It was Elena. He ran, past the front desk, past the elderly man in a wheelchair, past the mother rocking a toddler in a stained blanket. He shoved open the heavy double doors to the pediatric wing and followed the echo, heart hammering against his ribs like fists on a locked door. Room 312, the one with the cartoon giraffe on it. He pushed it open and everything stopped. Noah was lying on the hospital bed, a tangle of IV tubes and pale sheets, still as snow. Elena stood frozen at his side, one hand gripping the metal rail, the other pressed flat to her mouth. Her body shook, but no sound came out anymore. A nurse leaned over the bed, calling a name, Noah's name, but the boy didn't respond. Leonard's feet wouldn't move. The machines beeped in a frantic rhythm. One of them flashed red. A second nurse rushed in with a chilled packet of blood. We need to start transfusion now. His pressure's dropping fast. Another voice, older, calm but urgent. Page Dr. Hashu. Tell him we've got a pediatric code blue on the way. Leonard's body jolted into motion. He stumbled forward. What's happening to him? Elena turned toward him, eyes bloodshot, mascara smeared down one cheek like war paint. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She just looked at him, pleading, lost, furious with fear. The nurse nearest the bed looked up. He collapsed in the waiting room. Fever spiked. His hemoglobin's critically low. We need O negative. Fast. Leonard stepped back. His voice barely made it out. I'm O negative. The nurse snapped her fingers. You're a match? Leonard nodded. Confirmed last week. Follow me now. They moved quickly. Down the hall into the blood draw room, lights harsh, cold chair against his back. A phlebotomist prepped his arm, rubber strap tight, needle sharper than memory. He watched his blood fill the bag. Deep red. Hot. Real. The room was too quiet. The fluorescent light buzzed. He stared at the wall. A mural of smiling suns and blue elephants danced across it, mocking the dread clawing at his spine. Every second felt stolen. Every breath borrowed. He didn't look at the bag again until they unhooked him. Is it enough? He asked. We'll know soon, someone said, but it wasn't an answer. They didn't let him return to the room right away. He waited in the corridor, pacing the line between tile and shadow. He could still hear her crying, not loud anymore. But it didn't matter. That sound had already carved itself into him. He would hear it for the rest of his life. An hour passed, maybe more. A nurse finally waved him over. He's stable. You can come in. Elena sat in the chair beside Noah's bed. Her face was drawn, her hand still trembling slightly, but her voice was steadier. They said his body isn't making enough red blood cells. Something about aplastic anemia. Leonard stared at her. Is it? They don't know what caused it. Could be genetic, could be triggered by something we missed. She looked at Noah. His face was pale, lips dry, but his chest rose and fell steadily. A small comfort, a fragile relief. He asked for you when he woke up. Leonard swallowed hard. He knows? He remembers everything. You, the chalk, the blue house. Leonard stepped closer, sat at the edge of the bed. Noah opened his eyes slowly. You look tired, the boy murmured. Leonard let out a shaky laugh. You scared the hell out of me. Noah's mouth curved into a faint smile. I scared me too. Leonard leaned in. I gave you my blood. Cool. You think it'll make you faster? Maybe, or just make me draw better. Elena wiped at her eyes. Leonard reached out and took Noah's hand. It was cold, but it gripped his in return. You're my son, he said quietly. Noah blinked. I guessed. You're allowed to be mad at me for not being here. Noah stared at the ceiling for a long moment. Can I ask something? Anything. If you were here back then, do you think I still would have gotten sick? Leonard froze, then shook his head slowly. I don't know, but I'd have carried it with you. Noah turned toward him. I don't want you to leave again. I won't. You promise? I swear. Noah nodded, his eyes closed again. Leonard looked over at Elena. She was holding something in her lap, a small envelope, off-white, worn at the edges. She handed it to him. Your mother sent this, yesterday. It was at my door. Leonard took it. No return address, just his name in bold, elegant strokes. He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, cold. This isn't your future. She's not your blood. He's not your legacy. Come home before you lose everything that matters. No signature, but he didn't need one. Leonard folded the letter slowly. She's still watching. Elena didn't speak. A storm passed behind her eyes. She doesn't know about the transfusion yet, he said, but she'll find out somehow. Elena looked away. She has ways. He stood. Noah's life isn't her property. She thinks everything is. He walked toward the window. Outside, the first snow of the season had begun to fall. Quiet, gentle, deceptive. I need to speak to her, face to face. You think she'll listen? No. But she'll understand something else. He turned to Elena. If she tries to take him from you, she'll lose both of us. The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't empty. It held something else now. Weight, resolve. Noah stirred in the bed, mumbling something about colors. Elena smoothed his hair back, voice low, calming. Leonard looked at his son, then at the woman who had carried this alone for too long, and he made a vow without speaking it aloud. No more silence. No more absence. No more letting other people write his story for him. Outside, the snow thickened. The hospital lights glowed like candles behind frosted glass, and somewhere deep in the building, a printer beeped as it prepared a DNA test result he hadn't yet seen, one that would change the name on Noah's chart forever. She was already sitting by the fireplace when he walked in, silhouetted against the low flame, wrapped in that same ivory shawl she'd worn the day of his graduation. The Grayson estate had never felt more like a mausoleum than it did that morning. Winter light filtered through the high windows in long, cold streaks. The gold trim on the ceiling glinted dully, like old coins pulled from a riverbed. Leonard closed the door behind him. The sound echoed. His mother didn't turn. You took long enough. He said nothing at first, just looked at her, at the carefully poured tea beside her, at the stack of old letters on the side table, letters she never gave him. They were opened now, their edges soft, pages creased by careless fingers. You read them. Margaret finally turned her head. Her face was still elegant, but sharper now, thinner. Like time had started to carve away at the steel without asking permission. I did, she said. They were naive, romantic, poorly punctuated. Leonard moved closer, slowly. The old rug muffled his steps. You destroyed a family. I preserved one. His jaw flexed. You stole my letters, hired men to follow her, paid people off. Margaret reached for the teacup, her hand steady. I prevented a catastrophe. By threatening a pregnant woman? By erasing your grandchild from your life? She sipped the tea calmly. She would have ruined you. Leonard laughed. It was short, dry, dead. She's the only thing that ever made me real. Margaret set the cup down. The porcelain clicked against the saucer like a trigger. She made you soft, reckless. You think love is sacrifice. It isn't. It's a transaction. No, Leonard said, voice low. It's what's left when everything else breaks. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for the first time, there was something behind her eyes that almost resembled fear. Not of him, of being wrong. He reached into his coat and pulled out the envelope she had sent to Elena, the one with the typed message, the warning. He tossed it on the table. No signature, just poison. She didn't even flinch. I gave you every opportunity, Leonard. The house, the company, the name. And you throw it away for a woman who paints with children. He stepped forward, closing the gap between them. She's raising your grandson, the boy who nearly died 2 nights ago. Something flickered across her face, quick and sharp like a wire snapping. What happened? He collapsed. They said his blood cells were shutting down. He needed a transfusion. Her fingers curled on the armrest. You gave it. I didn't ask permission. Silence thickened the room. Only the fire crackled now, the sound like bones, shifting in a grave. Leonard lowered his voice. He's mine, Mother. Nothing you do can change that. Margaret stood, slowly. A queen still, but her crown was slipping. You think blood makes him yours? No, Leonard said, but it made me bleed when he did. They stared at each other. 2 statues carved from different stone. And then, for just a breath, she faltered. Her hand reached for the mantle, gripping the edge. I was trying to protect you. He nodded. I know. She turned away. Her voice came soft, almost human. I lost your father in a hospital bed. Watch machines breathe for him. Watch them fail. I swore I'd never feel that helpless again. Leonard blinked. You let that fear burn everything around you. Her shoulders tensed. And what would you have done, Leonard? At 26, with a baby, a career on the edge, would you have survived? He didn't answer, because he wasn't sure. She turned back to him. Her voice was firmer now, the mask slipping back into place. You won't bring her back here. No. You won't give him the Grayson name. Yes, I will. Then I'll cut you out. Leonard exhaled. You already did, 8 years ago. She flinched as if struck, then steadied. Leave. He walked past her, but just before the door he paused. You could still be part of his life. She didn't move. If you can see him as more than an obstacle, still nothing. If you can't, then you'll never see him at all. And he left. The front door shut with a finality that rippled through the hall. Outside, the snow was falling heavier now. The trees that lined the Grayson estate stood frozen in silence, their branches bare, the gravel path already covered in white. Leonard stepped into the car and sat still for a long moment. He hadn't shaken. Not once. But now his hands wouldn't stop trembling. He pulled out his phone and called Elena. I'm coming back. She didn't ask what happened, just said, he's awake. Leonard nodded to himself. I'll be there in 20. He ended the call and gripped the steering wheel. For years, the Grayson name had been a fortress. Now it felt like a tomb. But Noah had a heartbeat again, and that was more than any empire had ever given him. He looked up through the windshield, watching the snow melt against the glass. For the first time in a long time, the road ahead was blurry, but it finally led somewhere he wanted to go. The knock was soft, almost too soft to hear over the hiss of the IV. Elena lifted her head from the hospital cot where she'd dozed, one arm still draped protectively across Noah's sleeping form. Her back ached. Her mouth tasted of old coffee and worry. But that knock? She knew it. She got up, tightened the belt of her cardigan, and opened the door. Margaret Grayson stood in the hallway. No fur coat this time. No diamonds. Just a simple black coat, gloves in one hand, a folded photograph in the other. The overhead light revealed how much she'd aged in just a few weeks. The sharpness in her cheekbones had dulled. The smooth skin around her eyes now folded into fine creases that looked carved from regret. I heard about the boy, she said, from Leonard. Elena didn't speak. She stepped aside, just far enough for Margaret to see the hospital bed behind her. Noah was still asleep. The monitor blinked slowly. Margaret took a breath, then walked in. It felt wrong. The rich scent of her perfume didn't belong in the sterile room, but she didn't posture. She didn't correct her spine or raise her chin. She just moved closer to the bed and stared. He looks like his father. Elena folded her arms. He is his father. A pause. I know. Margaret reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the old wedding photo Leonard had once kept hidden in his desk drawer. The one she'd torn in half, it had been taped back together, not perfectly. The crease still ran across Elena's mouth, but it was whole. I kept this, she said, for years. I used to take it out when I felt him slipping away. I'd look at it and remember what I feared most. Elena narrowed her eyes. Me? No, Margaret said quietly. Love, the kind you don't get to control. She set the photo down on the windowsill and turned. I came here to take the boy away last week. I brought a lawyer. I had it all planned. Private clinic, specialists, exclusive access. I thought I was doing the right thing. And what changed? Elena asked, her voice low. I saw Leonard, Margaret replied, sleeping in a hospital chair, IV in his arm, giving blood to a child who didn't even know his last name. That boy whispered his father's name in his sleep, not the name Grayson, just Dad. Elena felt her throat tighten. Margaret took a step closer to the bed. He doesn't know me, but I watched him breathe, watched his chest rise and fall, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a matriarch or a gatekeeper. I felt like a grandmother, just one who didn't deserve the title. Her voice cracked. I have cancer, stage 4, lungs, maybe a year left, maybe less. Elena blinked. It hit like a stone dropping into still water, soft at first, but the ripples kept spreading. Margaret reached out, gently brushed a curl from Noah's forehead. Her hand trembled. I spent a lifetime shaping legacies, building walls, measuring loyalty in silence and obedience, but none of it meant anything when I watched him lie there. She stepped back, wiping a tear before it fell. I thought I had time to make it right, to explain. Elena's voice softened. Why didn't you tell Leonard? Why hide it? Margaret looked down at her hands. Because I didn't want him to forgive me out of pity. I wanted to earn it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents, financial papers, signed affidavits, a notarized statement. I've added Noah to my medical directive. He'll receive full coverage through the Grayson estate, a trust, an education fund, but none of it means anything if you don't accept. Elena stared at her. You want my permission? No, Margaret said. I want your blessing. The air between them was thick, electric. Elena looked over at her son, at the quiet curve of his lips, the soft curl of his fingers around the blanket, then back at the woman who had tried to erase her. You broke me, she said. You shattered everything I was holding together. I know. You made me walk away. I know. Elena stepped closer. But if you're telling the truth, if you really want to be part of his life, then you have to stop controlling the narrative. Margaret nodded slowly. I'm tired of writing stories no one wants to read. A pause. Then Elena did something she hadn't planned. She reached out, took Margaret's hand. It was cold, fragile, like something that didn't have many more winters left in it. Margaret squeezed back, eyes wide with something that looked almost like disbelief. You'll let me visit? She asked. Elena nodded. Start with that. Noah stirred in the bed. Both women turned. He blinked slowly, eyes still heavy with sleep. Mom, he murmured. Elena moved to his side. I'm here. His eyes wandered, landed on the woman behind her. Who's that? Elena hesitated, then looked at Margaret. The older woman stepped forward. Her voice shook. I'm your grandmother. Noah blinked, then looked at his mother. Elena nodded. It's okay. Noah smiled faintly. You look like the lady in the picture Dad keeps in his wallet. Margaret let out a breath that broke halfway through. Elena tucked the blanket tighter around him. Noah looked at both of them. Do grandmothers read bedtime stories? Margaret's lips quivered. I used to, a long time ago. You can read one tomorrow, he whispered. If I'm not too tired. Elena looked down at him, ran her fingers through his hair. We'll see how you feel. Margaret stepped back, giving them space. Her eyes didn't leave the boy. Elena followed her to the door, stood in the frame. "Thank you for coming," she said. Margaret turned. "No, thank you for letting me stay." And then she was gone. Elena returned to the bed. Noah was already drifting again, his breathing slow and even. She sat there for a long time, long after the machines went quiet again, long after the hallway lights dimmed. She reached for the photo on the sill. The crease was still there, but it didn't matter. It was whole, just like the three of them, damaged but stitched together by something stronger than history, and maybe, just maybe, strong enough to face whatever came next. The first word out of Noah's mouth was not hello, it was Dad. Leonard stopped mid-step. He stood in the doorway of the recovery room, coat dripping with snowmelt, briefcase still hanging awkwardly in one hand. Elena had called half an hour ago, said Noah had opened his eyes again after the marrow transfusion, said his voice was stronger, but she hadn't said that. Noah was sitting up now, leaning back against two propped pillows, his skin still pale, but his cheeks finally held a hint of color. He smiled, sleepy and proud, like he'd just discovered a secret. "I remembered," the boy said. Leonard dropped the briefcase and walked over. Elena stepped aside to give them space. Her eyes were red but shining. Leonard crouched next to the bed, his knees aching against the floor. "You remembered what?" Noah's small hand crept over the sheets and landed on his father's. "Your voice. From the park. From the blood room. I dreamed it and then I woke up, and it was still there." Leonard pressed his lips together. He nodded once, then leaned in and whispered, "I never stopped talking to you." Noah laughed softly. "I know." The machines around him blinked green, steady, calm. Dr. Shu entered quietly with a clipboard and a knowing smile. "The worst is behind us," he said. "The marrow is taking. His vitals are holding. We'll run another panel in the morning, but everything looks better." Leonard stood, chest tightening. "Better?" The doctor nodded. "Stronger. His immune system's rebuilding." Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "And long term?" she asked. "We'll take it step by step," Shu said. "But today, we're winning." He turned and left, leaving the door slightly ajar. Outside the window, sunlight cut through clouds that had hovered for days. Meltwater dripped from the sill in soft rhythms. Noah shifted slightly. "Can I go home soon?" Elena smoothed his hair. "Not today, but maybe soon." Noah nodded. "Okay, can we paint when we get there?" "Of course." Leonard smiled. "What do you want to paint?" The boy looked out the window. "A sun, a really big one." Leonard walked to the window and stared out. The world outside had turned gold. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope he hadn't had the courage to open earlier. Results from the DNA panel Dr. Shu had taken. Not that anyone doubted it now, but the paper still made it real. He unfolded it slowly. Name, Noah Elias Monroe. Father, Leonard Grayson. Probability, 99.99%. It felt strange, seeing it printed. A truth so deeply known now confirmed in ink. He folded it again and slid it into the breast pocket of his coat. He didn't need to show it to Elena. Not yet. He just needed to carry it for a while, like a quiet badge of belonging. The nurse returned a moment later with a tray. Apple juice, toast, a single paper cup of ice chips. Noah took one, chewed slowly, then pointed to the ring on his dad's finger. "What's that?" Leonard looked down. His signet ring, the Grayson seal. He hadn't taken it off in years, not even when he'd wanted to throw it into the sea. "It's a family thing," he said. "Do I get one?" Leonard looked at Elena. She smiled faintly. "Maybe one day, if you want it." Noah considered that. "Does it make you stronger?" Leonard knelt beside the bed again. "No, just heavier." The boy nodded. "That's okay. I want one that fits my finger." They laughed. The air in the room felt different now. Not light exactly, but not heavy either. Like a door had been opened, and the past was finally starting to breathe. Noah sipped his juice. Leonard leaned back and stared at the ceiling, then asked softly, "Do you remember anything from before you fainted?" Noah tilted his head. "Not really, just that it got really cold, like inside my bones." Elena's hand tightened on the bed rail. "But then I felt warm, like someone lit a fire in my chest, and I thought, Dad's here." Leonard's throat closed. He reached up and rubbed his eyes. "I was," he whispered. Noah smiled. "I think you made my blood braver." The line hit harder than it should have. They didn't speak for a while after that. Just listened to the soft beeps, the drip of the IV, the shifting hallway beyond the door. When the nurse returned with new sheets and asked Elena to step out for a moment, Leonard stayed. He pulled up a chair, leaned close to Noah, and whispered, "Want to know a secret?" The boy nodded. "I used to be scared of kids." Noah raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because they ask hard questions." Noah grinned. "Like what?" "Like what happens if someone leaves." "Did you leave?" Leonard's smile faltered. "I didn't know you were waiting." Noah thought for a second. "That's okay. I wasn't done being ready." Leonard leaned forward, kissed his son's forehead. "You're ready now." Noah whispered something then, barely audible. Leonard leaned in. "Say that again?" "I'm glad I got sick." Leonard pulled back, startled. "Why would you say that?" "Because if I hadn't, I might never have met you." Silence spread through the room like light. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Noah's eyelids drooped again. The morphine was subtle but steady. Before he fell asleep, he murmured one last thing. "Don't be far when I wake up." Leonard whispered back, "I won't." He sat beside him until the beep slowed to something gentle, something peaceful. Later that night, Elena came back into the room with a small bag. Inside was a book of short stories. The cover was cracked from age. Leonard recognized it, one of his old favorites from childhood. She handed it to him. "I found it in a box of your old things. Thought he might like to hear your voice." Leonard took the book, turned the pages. It smelled like paper and old air. He sat back in the chair, opened to the first story, and read aloud. Noah didn't wake, but his fingers curled around the blanket. Leonard didn't stop reading. Not even when the nurse dimmed the lights. Not even when the hallway fell quiet. Outside the window, the stars blinked against the night like old promises, fragile, distant, and finally visible again. And somewhere in that quiet stretch between pages, Leonard realized something. He wasn't just reading to his son. He was reading to the boy he used to be, too. And this time, no one was walking away. The photograph arrived a week after the funeral. No name, no return address, just a plain envelope slipped under the front door, the way secrets sometimes arrive when you're no longer afraid of them. Leonard opened it in the kitchen while the apple pie baked and the sound of seagulls circled the windows of the main house. The afternoon light painted long, amber lines across the floor. Noah was outside with Elena, barefoot in the grass, chasing a paper kite. Their laughter floated in like wind. Inside the envelope was a single photo, a hand-drawn picture folded neatly. On one side, a house by the sea, crooked chimney, warm yellow windows. On the lawn, 3 figures holding hands, a man, a woman, a boy. Off to the right, barely sketched in the corner, was a 4th figure, a woman with silver hair. Her smile was gentle. Her outline faded. On the back, one sentence in soft cursive. "If there is another life, let me come back as someone who listens." It was signed M. Grayson. Leonard stood very still. The oven timer beeped. He didn't move, just stared at the drawing for a long moment, something heavy and bright swelling behind his ribs. Then he folded the paper again and placed it beside the envelope, beside the photo of his wedding, now reframed, no longer hidden in a drawer. Outside, Noah shouted something joyful. The wind picked up. The kite danced higher. Elena called from the porch. "Pie's gonna burn, Dad." He smiled. "Coming." That night, as the fire crackled and the last crumbs of crust lingered on their plates, Noah curled up beside Leonard on the couch with his sketch pad. "Draw with me," he said. Leonard picked up the pencil. "What are we drawing tonight?" Noah looked thoughtful. "A sunrise, but only half of it, like it's still deciding if it wants to come up." Leonard's hands paused over the page. "You like beginnings more than endings?" Noah shrugged. "Endings are just where new drawings hide." He started sketching. A curved horizon, soft light. Elena sat by the window, book open but unread. Her eyes kept drifting to them. She was still grieving, not just Margaret's death, but the weight of all those years no one would ever get back. But even grief had changed its shape. It no longer bit the same. It softened into something you could live beside. Leonard leaned over Noah's shoulder. Should we add a boat? Yeah, a small one, but fast. What's in it? The boy smiled. Just a backpack and a compass. Leonard nodded. I like that. They drew in silence for a while. At one point, Noah paused, looked at the empty space on the edge of the page. Should we add her? Leonard followed his gaze. He nodded slowly. Not as a ghost, as a lighthouse. Noah grinned, then bent down and began to draw. A tower. Gentle light. Tiny figure in the top window, watching the waves. She keeps the boats from crashing, Noah whispered. Elena closed her book. She always wanted to be the one who saved everyone. Leonard leaned back, voice soft. She just forgot how. The fire cracked, warm and steady. Later, when Noah was asleep and the wind was rising outside, Leonard stood on the back deck alone. He wore her old shawl, the one Margaret left behind on the chair after the hospital visit. He hadn't washed it. The scent was still there. Clove, lilac, and something that reminded him of distant rain. Elena stepped out behind him, a mug of tea in her hand. She wrapped her arm around his. She'd be proud of you, she said. Leonard's jaw clenched. She never said it. She didn't know how. They stood there facing the ocean. The stars blinked above them. He turned to Elena. I never thought I'd feel peace in a place with so much silence. She kissed his cheek. That's because you filled it. His eyes glistened. With what? She smiled. Your voice. In the morning, Noah woke up before them. He left a note by the bed. Gone to draw the sun. It's late. They found him outside on the porch, sketch pad in his lap, pencils scattered like confetti. The sky was a riot of color. Peach, gold, blue stretching into pale gray. The world was quiet, just birds and salt in the air. Noah pointed at his drawing. Look, it's all of us, even Storm. Leonard blinked. Storm? Our horse, Noah said matter-of-factly. We don't have him yet, but I think he's coming. Elena laughed. Leonard reached for the boy and pulled him into his lap. I believe you. Noah looked up. You do? Yes, because once I didn't believe in anything. The boy leaned into his chest. Was it scary? Leonard nodded. Very. And now? Leonard looked at Elena. Now I'm not scared of the dark. I'm just waiting for the light. A few days later, they received the final letter from the hospital. Noah's levels were holding. The risk had diminished. His immunity was stabilizing. Leonard sat on the porch steps, letter in hand, staring at the boy on the lawn. Free, he whispered. Elena came out with a blanket, wrapped it around his shoulders. Almost. Noah shouted from the grass, I'm going to build a sand fort. Leonard smiled. Make it big enough for 3. I already did. That evening, Leonard lit the fireplace one last time for the season. He placed Margaret's drawing above the mantel, beside Noah's latest watercolor of the lighthouse. The room was quiet. Elena poured them both a glass of wine. To the woman who broke everything, so we could build it back better, she said. Leonard raised his glass. To the boy who saved us. Outside, the waves kissed the shore. And inside, a family once torn by silence found harmony in the space between their voices. Sometimes, life fractures in quiet ways. Not with explosions, not with fanfare, but in the silence between words unsaid, in the letters never sent, in the names left blank on forms that should have held so much more. And yet, even the deepest cracks have a strange mercy about them. They let the light in. Because healing doesn't always arrive with a cure. Sometimes it shows up as a second chance. A voice that stays, a sunrise that takes its time, a drawing on the corner of a page that says, I'm still here. This is not just a story of loss and reunion. It's a reminder that love, real love, isn't always loud. It's the hand that doesn't let go when you're tired. It's the voice that reads through the night, even when no one seems to hear. It's in the small choices, staying, listening, forgiving, even when it hurts. The people we lose shape the people we become. The absences leave outlines we grow into. And sometimes, when the pain softens, we begin to understand that what seemed like an ending was really just a beginning, wearing the clothes of grief. If there's anything to carry forward from this journey, let it be this. That time can wound, but it can also redeem. That silence can destroy, but it can also teach us to listen. That even the coldest hearts can thaw when touched by the quiet, stubborn miracle of compassion. We don't get to choose how we begin, but we always get to choose how we continue. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it beautiful. Thank you for joining us in this story. If it moved you, if it made you reflect, or even just pause, please let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this story reached you, wherever you are in the world. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to stay connected with more stories that speak to the quiet strength in all of us. Until next time, stay warm, stay open, and stay listening.